big shift was when I was not able to, in a way, save a family member's life, because I was trying to adhere to this dogma of coaching rules that...
Hey guys, real quick, the only reason this podcast grows is because of you. When you hit that follow button or you leave us a review, it means the world to me. I did a cost analysis. Each episode, in terms of resources, costs somewhere around $2,500 and upward. We give a lot of this professional development away for free, but what makes the world to me is when you leave a review or you give us 5 stars or just give us feedback so we know how to grow. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that the Manager's Mic podcast is exceptional and serves your professional development. Take care, and back to the show. I have with me today Wei Houng. I think I said that right. I was practicing our little precursor conversation. I always think there's a lot of power in a name. And speaking of power, I'm really excited to have our guest on today because we're going to cover his solution and some other concepts around sales and how you can lower toxicity in the workplace, elevate team performance, and how Wei is actually doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So Paul, I've been in the human optimization game now for... yikes, I almost don't want to say it, over 30 years now. And my journey around that really began as far back as junior high, where most of us struggled with being seen, being heard, being understood. I ran through that other side where being bullied and getting to a point where I thought there was something wrong with me. Right. Because everything I was trying to do, not realizing that this is just the dynamic of adolescence. People click out into different groups. And so the struggle of needing to be liked and needing to be heard and everything just kind of went sideways, because my parents are immigrants. And so they didn't know the constructs of society and what it means to dress your kid in a certain way. And then showing up and getting judged by the very mean adolescent kids during that time. And I went on this journey right off the bat in junior high when I had to do a report around hypnosis or mesmerism and realize, oh my gosh, this is beyond just a stage show. This is me entering a phase where I can actually, and I was thinking to myself, I could fix myself, thinking that I needed to be fixed to fix the challenges I was having in the world. Come to realize as the years went by that nobody is really needing to be fixed. The real crux of the challenge is people aren't being objectively understood. And the key word here is objectively. And so my journey around that led to an obsession up to this day, where the company that I co-founded here called HumanOp is the culmination of my obsession with optimizing human performance, helping people get out of the muck and mire, disconnect from the matrix, if you will, and get to a point where they can walk their own, what I like to say, your own frequency of existence in this world, to make sure that you don't have to try to fit yourself in some kind of a square or a pigeonhole or some mold, just so that society can accept you.
I know a lot of the time we're going to get into the heart of your solution. And I was telling you before we hit record, I was at the gym. I usually go to the gym at 4:50, just listen to your podcast. And one of the problems we see in the corporate world, human assessments and other companies, is the pitfall of pigeonholing, we call it. And I'm glad you touched on that. Talk to me about what you see across other different types of human behavior systems. Maybe why it's not that they're outdated or bad. I think you've just spent an enormous amount of resources to build out your app and make it uniquely different. Talk to me about what are some of the challenges you saw with older models.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're asking that, and I love that you have the familiarity. We typically like to work with people who have had some experience with psychometric tools that are designed to make sense of the behavior patterns that human beings have. And you're right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of them. Everything has been developed and evolved out of an effort to understand ourselves better. So everything is fundamentally pure in its intention. But like everything else, things need to evolve. And so 20 plus years ago, my other co-founder, who is the progenitor of the technology, Dr. Zana Hackett, she was the one that invented the algorithm itself. What she was doing was she was observing the world to kind of understand how people are trying to understand each other. We have all these different tools. While better than nothing, she realized that when we calibrate on psychometry and psychology and basically our perspectives and our opinions, we're calibrating on the most volatile side of human existence. I mean, if we think
Right.
about how many times we talk about, I woke up on the right side of the bed today, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, don't give me these tasks to do because I'm not in a good mood. And
Mm.
as you know, with your experience going through the different psychometric tools, even the DISC assessment, is that when someone is in a really bad mood, or if they have a stub toe that is throbbing in pain, you can't
Yeah.
help but filter that day, at least filter your day through that lens of pain. Right. And when you do that, especially like you work out and I work out. So what happens is sometimes we do an extra hard workout and the rest of the day is just dragging because it's, oh my God, I'm so tired.
Speak
So
for yourself. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm just messing with it.
For
Go
me
ahead.
anyway.
Sorry.
So
I
what
didn't mean to
happens
derail
is
you.
that we as human beings, we can't help but do that because that's part of our survival mechanism. We take our experiences, we take what we experience personally, and we filter the world through that psychological lens. The
Okay.
problem with that is when we try to assess a human being during that moment in time or that moment in life through that side with that psychological lens up, what happens is we get skewed results. And
Mm.
Dr. Zana was just saying, well, that's better than nothing, but I think we could do better. And so she
Mm.
started her journey of figuring out how do we calibrate on the part of human beings that isn't so volatile, but actually changes the least over time. And what she landed on was the physical expression of ourselves, the physics of a human being. If
Mm.
you just came back from the gym, if you look around the gym, if we really pay attention, nobody looks like you and you don't look like anybody else. There's
Right.
at the very least, there's subtle differences enough to say, well, that's Paul and that's somebody else. And so she started to go down that rabbit hole and did some research around that and realized, holy cow, what we have as ultimately the ultimate algorithm is kind of a decoder ring to translate what nature has been telling us since day one. See, modern language has been around a long time. It's been around about 50,000 years. But in comparison with how long human beings have been around, we've been around for 2 million years. For about
Mm.
1.95 million years, we didn't have modern language. How the heck did we survive? We survived by looking into the nature of ourselves. We looked into the physics of things, just like every other animal on the planet right now, plants, everything that's living relies on the physical expression, the physical design of themselves in order to adapt or survive in any kind of environment. What we
Mm.
did was we simply took, and I love it when people talk to Dr. Zan and say, oh, this is your technology. She goes, well, sort of, but not really. I simply figured out how to translate what nature has been telling us since the day we arrived on this planet or we evolved into this planet, however you want to look at it.
Correct.
So our technology is literally based on that. It's based on the physics and the mathematic design of every human being. We take the physics into account to truly establish an objective understanding of the nature of that human being. And what we've been able to do over the past 20 years of research, we patented the technology 10 years ago, is be able to distill that down and convert that into a language that allows people to, one, understand themselves, their natural selves, so they can start making decisions that don't go against their nature of self. And then, as a byproduct of that, they can start to objectively honor and respect other human beings as not needing to be like them in order to be self-sufficient or valuable. So that's what we have. We can identify their behavior traits. We can help them schedule their optimal flow, biorhythmic flow through the day. We can identify what specific activities will keep them in a motivated state, which means long-term sustainable performance in any environment, whether it be work or in a relationship or at home. Our 20 years of development, patent 10 years of our technology, what sets us apart from the other ones is we represent a new generation of understanding. And it's not to discount all the other assessments. In fact, we actually play really well with the other assessments. A lot of times, executive coaches who use our technology, they are trained in this, they train in all these other assessments and technology and know how to use them. But what they found is using our technology, they're able to kind of find out where the value of each of those other assessments live within the ecosystem of the results that we provide for the
Right.
human being. Just to put in perspective, there are 8 billion people on the planet. Because of all the different variables, we literally can provide 8 billion unique results for every human being.
One of the things that humans forget a lot is that words and how we communicate is data, period. And what I like about your solution, and I do believe in human behavior assessments 100%, and I've never met one that was patented yet. The journey you've had to get it just to be patented, to
Yeah.
me personally, speaks to your passion as to why this is so important, as to why you want to reduce toxicity in the workplace. If I may, and to be clear with everybody, this is the first time you and I have talked. We had only
Mhm.
talked through email. You had mentioned school and things you went through. Can you kind of extract for me 2 or 3 key moments in your career that you were like, this has to happen because of what I've experienced? All right. And if you're not comfortable answering that, we can go on to another question. I just wanted to see, because I always like to know the story, behind the
Right.
solution.
Yeah.
That's just something I personally like, but I
Yeah.
am putting you on the spot also.
No, no, no. I mean, my life is pretty transparent. I wouldn't wish my life's journey on my worst enemy, actually, just because of all the deep, deep lows that I've had to pull myself out of. And just that alone was one of my biggest inspiration that why is it that human beings, in order for them to be inspired to change like I did, we have to hit this level of catharsis? I am grateful that I have the vehicle that I am as a human being because I have this level of resilience that sometimes is surpasses human logic. What I'm concerned about is what if someone doesn't have that level of resilience
Hmm.
and they hit the same type of circumstance? Will they even have an opportunity to learn from that catharsis? In the early parts of my journey, I was hell bent on saying, how do we inspire people to change and step into an embodiment of a better version of themselves and let go of the limiting beliefs and things that are holding them back without having to hit catharsis. And that I think began a big part of their journey. Is like, I don't want people to go hit the rock bottom like I did, but then not be able to get up ever again. You know, I don't want people to sit there and think about, I don't want to be here anymore, and then actually succeed doing it. Right.
Right.
Over the years, as a result of that, I've been able to, without marketing it, attract people who were on that cusp. And
Hmm.
very quickly, through the use of the technology and all the dozens of the modalities, and I think pivotal moment where I went all in on this was not when one of my clients said, "Hey, you should be a coach." And I said, "What's that? I'm a volleyball coach. I play volleyball, but I don't want to coach it." No, a life coach. I'm like, "What the heck is that?" My background is engineering, doctor, or lawyer. That's our culture, right? But the big shift was when um, I wasn't I was not able to, in a way, save a family member's life, because I was trying to adhere to this dogma of coaching rules that you shall not coach your own family or
Right.
something to that
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
You've heard that. And so I held back. And then not too long after me holding back from what I probably, if I just went all out on, we lost a dear family member. Now,
Sorry
I'm
to
not
hear that.
saying it was my fault. I'm not saying that I was the one that got, because there was probably a whole host of other issues, but from my perspective, I saw it, there was an opportunity for me to do more. And it was
Hmm.
that pivotal moment that I went all in on investing in myself, in the businesses that I create, in the solutions I create, and the systems I facilitate to help as many human beings as possible. One of the reasons why we made this big pivot towards having an app and having a web app, and we're currently in the beta stage, but even though we've been around for a couple decades, because prior to the last couple of years, we've been running it everything on a consultative model, but only for those who could afford it, which was
Right.
always chapping my hide every time I did, because I said every human being needs access to this. And now we made that big pivot for every human being can, as long as they have access to some sort of technology, however archaic. A smartphone is the bare minimum.
Right.
But they can access it for free to get the fundamentals out of the way. And so at least there's an opportunity for them to create, once again, going back to without having to hit catharsis or being on the cusp and say, hey, let me pull myself back from the cliff's edge.
Hmm.
And so that I can be better as a human being, not only for myself, maybe for the people that I manage and supervise, maybe for the clients that I sell to. All those different things come into play because that human being is more optimized. we think about how we show up as a human being, there's a ripple effect when a human being is fully optimized. And that's why we say, no, we don't want everybody to be on the same mission and vision as us to change the world. If you
Right.
just focus on your own personal self being better as a human being, everybody around you that you come in contact with will also be better. They'll be inspired to be better. You can bathe them in the frequency output that you have as a human being to be better, right? And you make better decisions. You interact with the world better. It's just a win-win-win around the world if everybody just really invested in having themselves becoming more optimized. And that's kind of what my journey has been to get to this point where this is our mission. This is what we want to do to be able
Right.
to make this world a better place, essentially.
I love all that. And I think, and I appreciate you being very transparent with me. I strongly believe in this mission. And I think what a lot of managers do, not just managers, let's just put everybody in this category, is I was in sales a long time and still am. And one of the things that was really tough for me in the beginning was really having to reframe rejection. It wasn't until we're talking like 2004 when I
Mhm.
first dropped out of college and then decided to go back much later in life. The fact that I was able to better control myself. And what I like about your solution is it takes a good time. Like when you download this app for those listening, it'll be in the show notes. You're going to need a dedicated at least 15 to 20 minutes. And that should impress you right off the bat because any assessment that is not dedicated to really take its time is a red flag, and which is what made me attracted to your solution is because it takes some upfront work so you can better understand yourself, get data, and as a company embraces this will allow your team synergy to come together. And I'm glad somebody like you had this much passion to put it together. Would you mind speaking to how you've seen some of these case studies maybe help people in a sales culture get better? Because one of the data points is sales has about a 90 to 95% turnover rate just
Right.
because of the culture.
Oh, I know it. There has been a lot of work that we've done with sales teams from startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies. The most common things that we've realized or uncovered or noticed during this process. And just for a little bit of background, for years I had a business that was a wholesale distribution center, was basically just hardcore sales. And I
Oh,
was
yeah.
running sales teams in the tri-state area. And you're right, the turnover rate is very high. I'm every week part of my gospel was we're constantly interviewing. We're constantly interviewing,
Mm,
hiring, training, constantly interviewing, hiring, training with a stick rate of maybe 5 out of 100. And that's sales. I mean, sales is
yeah.
like that. People try it, they can't hack it, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
Low barrier
It's
of
hard.
entry, high barrier of stickability. I spent years doing that, and before I even came across the technology, I realized there was a formula for cultivating really effective salespeople. I put together a whole program starting off with a training called The Art of Selling Without Selling. What it required each salesperson to do was to learn how to sell, because at the end of the day, your customer, your client is buying you, as you know. They're not buying the product. Your product happens to be the ornament that comes with you at
Right.
that moment in time. What they're investing in is their belief and their trust and the fact that they like you, and then they invest in you. The art of selling without selling is you're not selling the product or the service or whatever it may be. You are literally showing up to sell you. How authentic are you? So over the years, that has always been how I've approached sales and encouraged people to do sales. And when this technology came along, probably about 20 years later after me doing all that, I realized we have a blueprint that we can give people. We can help people understand their unique way of selling across the board so that no two salespeople have to feel like they have to be like the other person or sell like the other person. And
Right.
so a lot of what happens is that in cultures where like we were working with a Fortune 500 company where there were these silos of sales teams that were potentially going to shut down the whole entire organization because they were so reliant on those sales teams to do their job. But the sales teams were so toxic because one, they were misaligned and
Right.
it was infighting and they were stealing customers from each other instead of going out and getting new customers. It
Oh,
was
wow.
insane. When we went in there with our technology and objectively took a look at everything, it says, well, you guys have great salespeople. They're just teamed up in the most inoptimal way, if that's even a word. We had all these leaders sitting in one sales team. That's why they constantly weren't getting anything done because they were butting heads all the time. We have another team that had no leaders in it. And so it became just this rabid pack of dogs just fighting each other. What we did, we simply, first and foremost, we rearranged based on the HumanOp results to find natural compatible factors. But years later, we have this algorithm called the compatibility matrix algorithm, which allows us to just simply drag and drop, and it'll give you a quantified number of the natural compatibility factor of 2 people, 3 people, or 4 people. We
Like,
basically took what we had been doing for the last couple of decades and we turned it into an algorithm so that it is hyper accurate and it saves so much time. Because if you think about it from an HR perspective, that if you can minimize fighting, you can minimize stress, you can minimize bottom line or paid sick leaves or anything as a result of that high level of stress, we could eliminate the silos. We can improve harmony within the workplace, within especially sales teams that have multiple pods of sales teams doing the same thing. We don't have to have each one compete against each other, but rather each person competes against their own personal metric of success and everybody wins, right?
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's what we've been doing over the years, whether it be a small team to a super large sales team that have multiple pods all doing the same thing in different regions.
That's cool. I find it, and for context, for those who may be new to HR and going through an MBA program, and before I would have the A program, some of the data points that come to my mind is that 80 to 85% of an HR representative's time is doing administrative paperwork, and 2/3 of a middle manager's time is usually spent managing conflict. And when I say conflict, it's obviously paperwork doesn't have personal problems, it's people conflict. I'm curious to know from your experience, for somebody who may not also be ready to download the app
Uh-huh.
yet, what's a key insight you would give to a new HR representative or a new people manager to say, hey, if you're not ready to download the app, that's okay. I think you need to implement this into your team as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, when you're ready, come on, download our app. It's free to take the first assessment. There's
Yeah.
no barriers or boundaries. But what's a key insight you would give someone that avatar will talk to, that person who may be new? Any thoughts on that?
Our technology is based on what we all kind of intrinsically and genetically can see and understand. It's been passed down since the beginning of time. One of the things that we help people understand is what we call your alchemic boundaries.
Alchemic boundaries.
Alchemic
Okay.
boundaries of tolerance. And that's actually the number one factor of where relationships succeed or fail. Okay.
Really?
So
Alchemic
there is a
boundaries.
tolerance range. We actually have a whole periodic table that gives you a formulaic way to understand how much time you can actually spend within 10 feet of another person before there becomes a mutual energy drain that then contributes to conflict. What we've done in organizations is look at the levels of refinement of how a person shows up. And there's no judgment to any type of way. There's people who are super over the top neat. When you look at their table every morning, every night, it's clear. And when they work through the day, but everything's put away. There are other people, however, it's just this continuous pile that keeps piling up. And there's nothing wrong or right about anyone because it's an alchemic preference. That being
Oh,
said, if you put someone who has this bird's nest of a table right next to someone who has this pristine, refined table that's always clean and put away, you're going to notice natural conflict that exists between those two. So what we have done in larger open workspaces, and just to give you an insight, that the results produces an analogous type of explanation between gold, silver, and copper. Gold is highly refined, copper is super relaxed, super grounded, and you actually need representation of all three to have a highly successful company. The bigger your company is, the bigger your
yeah.
organization, the more you have to have representation of all three ores. The golds are
Hmm.
really good at visioning, high level thinking. The coppers are boots to the ground, get it done. But there is a level of dissonance and resonance that happens when you put those two together. What we've done in organizations is we've gone to open workspaces, and simply the first step is reorganize the room, put all the golds on one side, all the
Hmm.
silvers in the middle, and all the coppers on the other side. And this you could do visually. You could literally look at that human being, be able to determine, oh, this is kind of what this person might be.
Yeah.
And we have seen productivity at a bare minimum, just by doing that, go up by 25% or more.
Really?
just by rearranging the room based on their alchemic preference.
I never thought about it personally through that frame. There's two things that came to mind. I like the gold, silver, and bronze. That was really, I like the way you framed that. It was very easy to understand. If you can make it simple for me, I'm not the
Yeah,
smartest guy in the world.
I'm
First, when
all
you
about
said
simplicity too.
when you said the alchemic thing, I was like, uh-oh, big words. But that was my first thought. The second thought was, wow, I think you just totally nailed the conflict that me and my wife have every time. Like, she has filing systems and I have piling systems that I'm still working through. That's what I was thinking. Um, I'm curious. One of the buzzwords is you have introverts and extroverts, and
Uh-huh.
studying some of your content, there's a joke I'll give you that I like a lot from Mark Norman. He's a comedian I ended up having to hang out with once. Long story. Won't get
Nice.
into it because you're the star. But his joke is he gets into a taxi and he tells the guy he's an introvert. And he goes, "You're an introvert, huh?" He goes, "Why don't you tell me all about that?" He goes, "Doesn't work that way." Uh, I love that joke so much. I'm curious though, when you talk about gold, silver, bronze, all that, do introverts and extroverts play a different role? Because like introverts get their energy typically not from people, but extroverts do. Did that play into that as all in what you've seen in your experience too?
Yeah. What I'll say is extroverts and to your point about simplicity, human beings because they've got complexity fatigue. Because complexity and simplicity are human-made constructs. Easy and
Right.
hard are separate, but that's naturally there in all of nature. When we've developed a culture that has now prioritized complexity as a way to establish personal value, which
Okay.
has collateral damage when that happens. And I love that most people do thrive in simplicity. We just forget that maybe it's better to keep it simple. But then, as a byproduct of swinging hard away from the complexity, sometimes we end up oversimplifying. And I think extroversion and
Mm,
introversion are two of those concepts because, quite frankly, some people are both. It just
yeah.
depends on what gear they're actually in at that moment in time. Human beings are multifaceted, and we highlight that in the results of our human op assessment. You can at some times of the day be completely extroverted, and there are other times of the day you're totally introverted. I mean, I actually literally see that in you. There are moments when you are super inclusive, super collaborative, you're like the life of the party, but I know there's a part of you also that says, okay, enough is enough. I need to go to my man cave. I need to be alone right now to rejuvenate, recharge. In that
Yep.
instance, in your case, I would based on what I see anyway, is that you actually have both. Within the extroversion and introversion, we break down within our results specifically what type of extroversion that you actually have, what type of
Hmm.
introversion you actually have. And for you, yes, there's people around that actually brings out the extroversion. If there's nobody around, it brings you into a level of introversion. You can still probably be extroverted doing the podcast and everything, but the introversion is where that creativity comes from. The part of you that can go deep and start to process those creative thoughts and those potentially genius thoughts that live there as well. And so to answer your question about extroversion and introversion, I think the time has come now for people to, I think they're ready. They're tired of the buckets that are too generalized, to break it down to many buckets and many understandings of what type of extroversion, what type of introversion, what type of blending, because most people are a hybrid.
I can't remember the last time anybody used Paul and possibly has a genius thought in the same sentence. So we've never met, and you just gave me a compliment. So I know we're going to be best friends for a minute after that statement. I'm actually nerding out on some of this, to be honest with you. You had mentioned it was Doctor. It was her name again, if I
Dr.
may?
Zana Hackett.
Xana Hackett. Could you talk about how that relationship formed? And is there any other quotes or heroes you leverage in your professional development, into your entrepreneurial journey, and launching a patented is it a human behavior assessment tool? What's the actual definition of it? I don't want to speak for
Yeah.
your language. I want to get it right because it's
Yeah,
important.
it depends on the use case. Typically, the reason why our company name is called HumanOp, it used to be called Human Optimization Technologies, and it's just way too long. So we just shortened down to
Right.
HumanOp.
Fair enough.
And it's a human optimization technology. But, for example, we worked with a few boutique VCs that have used this kind of as their secret weapon, and they refer to it as a human predictive performance technology. So allows them to really predict where this investment that they've invested in the people, the unique combination of people, what can we predict that they're going to go or do as a result of our infusion of capital into their business. And it does provide a predictive nature based on the raw data that comes out from the algorithm on the back end.
Why was she so influential? Number one. Number two, what are other heroes you also leverage to kind of yourself that maybe other people could also invest in? As there are other people we should consider to
Mhm.
kind of own this behavior style on our day to day outside of your app as well. Would you mind giving some insight around that question? If there's anything ambiguous, please push back so I can say it in a different way, if I may.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're asking. So how I came across this technology, I was about already a couple decades into this human optimization game, obsessed with the human condition, helping people. I have background in trainer of hypnotherapy, a master trainer in mental emotional release therapy, neurolinguistics, all those different modalities, energetics. So I went through both the more left brain to the right brain to understand the whole entire ecosystem of how do we support human beings as a whole. Then have had teachers along the way that stopped answering my questions. I said, why does this work? Why does this work? Why does that work? And it wasn't because I was being skeptical. I just want to really understand because my background is in computer science engineering. So I'm like, hey, I just want to know
Yeah.
because I work with other people too. I'd love to be able to expand the spectrum of people I can actually support that can embrace how we're doing things.
Right.
Finally, what I did was I utilized my alumni card at UCLA and then went back into the engineering library. But now instead of studying quantum physics and thermodynamics and the nature of the universe for a project, I was actually doing it to answer the questions that nobody else could.
Mm.
I blended all that together to do what I was doing at the time. And then my marketing guy knew Dr. Zana and knew our other co-founder, Lisa Nelson, who's our master trainer and certifies all the people who are certified in our technology. And what we did, he said, you need to take this. I don't like assessments. I can manipulate them. Of course, I was referring to those psychometric tools. He goes, no, just take it. It took him about 2 months. Finally, he said, fine, I'll take it. And then I took it and I was just like, what is this, a Facebook quiz? What is it asking me questions that I can't lie about this? Fine, I'll answer
Yeah.
these questions because it's questions about your physical nature. Afterwards, I said, I don't even know how they can get anything out of this. Then I got my result sessions. Back then, there was no app. We had to do it manually. So I sat down with Lisa for 90 minutes and then basically, boom, it clicked. And she goes, years later, she goes, I saw the moment it clicked in for you. Then she introduced me to Dr. Zana, who took me down the rabbit hole of quantum physics to explain the nature of how the technology works, why it works, and everything. At one point, I sat back and I was just like, Dr. Zana, where has this been? I've been at this game a really long time. This is the holy grail of human understanding. Why am I just hearing about this now? This could have, I mean, I don't know what I could have done at this point if I had this tool. And this is why I learned about geniuses of the world. Geniuses of the world are geniuses because they literally suck at everything else. Because her answer to me was, well, we're really big in Encinitas. I'm like, Encinitas? That's not even a finger pit of the planet. That's like a small, tiny village above San Diego. No, this needs to be in the hands of every human being. But that's why we love her. Her ability to just focus on that is what makes her a genius. My dad's the same way. He doesn't try to be good at anything else. He's just that. And thus began the journey. And from that point on, I says, you know what? Let me help you. And that's when we, in essence, got married from a purpose standpoint to birth HumanOp. And now HumanOp is working in conjunction with Dr. Zana, Lisa, and our fourth co-founder, Martin, to take this out to the world to make this world better so that human beings can finally truly be the stewards of the planet instead of being the viruses of the planet.
That's cool. You said married. I'm assuming you mean professionally, if I may.
Professionally, yeah. No, she has her husband and everything like that. And
No. I just didn't want to
skateboarder.
misunderstand that. I didn't want anyone else to misunderstand that as well. But I think this is really cool. Anybody listening to this, check out the show notes, download the app, take the 15-minute quiz. Even if you're not ready to buy, or maybe you're not the avatar for the solution yet, I can tell you that this is definitely something I've never seen it patented. I've never seen this level of depth and data go into it. I'm super impressed with it.
I mean, I think the big thing is, again, I'm at a point in my life where it'd be nice to get more people to be paid customers per se, because we have a whole ecosystem and community here in Silicon Valley that people are listening that are local to here. Great. But and we have a leadership retreat that we do. I know there's people who are hesitant, but it's free. There is a reason why we made it free. Just go in there and test it out. If you don't like it, close the account. It deletes everything if you don't want anything.
Right.
We double check and say, hey, if you delete this, it's gone. It's one of those things where if we can encourage people to just try it. It's for themselves. If not for anybody else or not for their organization, just for themselves. Because the ability to see, hear, and understand yourself through the objective, impersonal, so to speak, the kind of interface, it gives them that safety that it's not a human being telling them. They're like, oh, cool. This is me. Wow. This is really good.
Is there other solutions you have to help supplement the education around this app? Other things you do to take people's education a step further and how they can better own their human behavior, career, and level up in the workplace?
That's a great question, because one of the challenges we've had, because it is such a Swiss Army knife of human understanding and human optimization, it works ubiquitously across all industries where there are human beings involved. One of our biggest challenges was, how do we strip it down so that it becomes easier to digest? And recently, I was introduced to someone who used to work at one of the top 3 VC firms here in the Silicon Valley area. And he looked at our technology and he says, when I was still working in that VC, we spent years looking for a technology like this. We couldn't find it anywhere. But now you guys have it. He advised me on, here's the thing about technology like this, is that you can't pull away and strip it down anymore, because the value and the impact of it is, because it's like cutting into a trunk of a tree when you're trying to trim the try to kind of make it look better. You can't do that. So he said, because it's so cutting edge, because it's so ahead of everything else, you have to take an evangelistic, educational approach on how you bring this out to the world. I said, this is exactly what I've been thinking and been telling our marketing team. We're not going out to sell. We're going out to educate. We need to empower people to understand the power of using, which is what is now a free technology. And if they want to go deeper and they're like, we like this, we want to go even deeper, then sure, you can engage in some of our paid offerings. In the Silicon Valley area, we have a community that we're just launching right now where we have weekly workshops that are free. We're calling it application labs. People can bring in the results, bring in the technology, bring in the apps, and then we workshop through every single week, focusing on one specific solution, whether it be motivation or team dynamics or relationships. And then every week is a different topic. Then we also, if people want to go even deeper than that, then we are a half-day paid workshops, or we have a full-day paid workshop, hyper-focused on one specific solution and an application of the technologies. Now, you just bring this technology wherever you go to each of these possible ways that we can show you how to then make significant change in the dynamics in both work and life. Then, of course, those who are really invested in the entire ecosystem, we have a high-level mastermind inner circle that meets quarterly, every single month virtually, and that's an annual membership type of dynamic where it's the best of the best, the most highly invested in innovative leaders, success leaders who really want to not only take themselves to the next level, but also make an impact in the world while doing so. There's so many different ways that we've structured our ecosystem to be able to support any level of engagement, from free all the way to people who are wanting to join our mission to make the world a better place. That's one of the best ways for us to help people understand just how powerful this technology is, even though it's relatively simple in its implementation.
Oh, I love that. And I think you should always bet on yourself. One of the things I believe a long time ago, if you can bet on your own education and investment in it, there's always a strong return.
The highest ROI in any investment that you have in this lifetime is not the house, is not this massive portfolio as a high return. It's in you as a human being, because that's the gift that keeps giving. That's the ROI that never stops paying out dividends for as long as you live.